people who have been to a wedding that didn't end up with the couple getting married, what happened? Story 1. They managed to get married, but then she hopped in a car with some random dude. I was confused. Asked my buddy what was going on. He explained that that dude was driving her down to the honeymoon spot because she didn't like the way he, her husband of 3 minutes, drove. 2 days later, I found out that once my friend made it to the cabin for their honeymoon, he walked in on them in the shower together. She then revealed that she only married him so her parents would get off her back, that she hated him and was shacking up with this guy the whole week instead. They'd tell everyone it wasn't working out once they got back in town and annulled their marriage. My friend was obviously devastated by this and has never recovered. Story 2. My older brother got married to his girlfriend of 10 years. At the end of the party, when I and most of my brother's family had left, it all kicked off. Turns out that she and my brother's best friend planned for 3 years for the marriage to happen so she could divorce him and take the house and live in it with the guy she'd been behind my brother's back. Little did she know that the house was in my dad's name and not my brother's. They have the exact same name. She was entitled to nothing. Last I heard, her family abandoned her, and so did her boyfriend after she put on lots of weight. Story 3. Not exactly, but I did know a couple who, the night before their City Hall wedding, both had separate big parties and got so wasted they both slept through the wedding. They didn't realize it until City Hall called asking where they were, and they decided, it, we'll do it later. They did eventually get married, and still are, as far as I know, over 20 years later. It sounds like those two were literally made for each other. Story 4. My brother had a very close call. During the "do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband" part, my sister-in-law, who we will call Jane, just stood there wordless for like 3 minutes. Total deer-in-the-headlights stare. The minister put his hand on her shoulder and whispered something into her ear. Then she left and went into the worry room for a while. The minister asked her mom to go join her and told everyone, please be patient, just a case of the jitters, etc. My brother looked like he had been hit over the head with a sledgehammer. He sat down in the choir, put his hand between his knees, and tried not to pass out. Nearly half an hour later, many "I'll just go check on how things are going" announcements from the minister, the mom and Jane came back. The ceremony started over from the beginning, with the bride reprising her walk down the aisle and everything. She sobbed hysterically through almost the entire ceremony, but they got through it. We found out later that a close family's friend's husband had passed away after a long bout with cancer that morning, leaving behind a widow in her early 40s. It hit Jane really hard because the neighbor had been nearly a second mother to her, and between her grief at the husband passing away and the realization that marriage is a guarantee that someone will lose the love of his or her life, my sister-in-law pretty much lost it. They're still married, 3 kids, dog, a nice house, etc., but it was touch and go there for half an hour or so. Yeah, it's amazing how life can throw unexpected curveballs at us, even on what should be one of the happiest days of our lives. I can only imagine how difficult it must have been for Jane to process the news of her family friend's passing while standing at the altar. It's a testament to her strength and resilience that she was able to gather herself and continue with the ceremony, despite the overwhelming emotions she must have been feeling. In the end, it turned out to be one of the sweetest and cutest stories I've ever heard. Wish you all the best in your marriage. Story 5. Had a friend who called off the wedding that morning, but still held the reception that evening. Apparently, the bride's family did not approve, so they didn't go through with it. Only the people who were invited to the small ceremony knew, so many people at the reception didn't. Guests were congratulating them, and bride and groom just pretended that they were married. They ended up getting married 4 months later in secret. Needless to say, the reception was awkward for those that knew. Story 6. This happened around 20 years ago. I am Indian and was supposed to get married to a guy who was a close family friend. That guy was nice and all, but on the wedding day, he ran away with my sister. Yes, you guys heard it right. He ran away with my youngest sister. So my entire family was very upset and claimed his younger brother as compensation. I got married to his younger brother. Marriage has turned out superb, like one of those dream marriages you see on TV. So basically your family got 2 brothers for the price of 1. Jokes aside, that's really messed up, and I'm not sure if your families are ever going to be in a normal relationship again. Story 7. Yes, it was my own wedding. I was there waiting, and my bride-to-be texted me, letting me know that she wasn't feeling well and that she needed to go to the hospital. I got suspicious when I noticed that no one from her side of the family had shown up. Turns out they never sent their half of the invitations and never bothered to tell me that there was no wedding. So there I was with my friends and family at a wedding that didn't actually exist. Story 8. Damn it, I'm late to the game, but I have an awesome one for this, so screw it. So, I know a guy who bakes wedding cakes as a side business. One time he gets a call from a woman he kinda knows, and she asks him, can he make a cake for her wedding that coming weekend? And he said he could. The bride orders a cake with the bride and groom on top, but with another woman, pregnant, sitting off to the side. She was very specific about the color of the pregnant woman's hair, etc. The wedding goes ahead, the reception goes ahead, then they bring out the cake. Everyone gathers round. People start to notice there are 3 figurines on the cake. The bride calls for attention, points to the cake, says, there's me, there's groom, and this one is the he knocked up 6 months ago. And then she just walked out. Craziest thing I've ever heard. The lengths people will go to for drama. Last thing the baker heard, the couple were still married. Geez, I mean, I've heard some crazy things before, but maybe this story takes the cake. It's sad to think that someone would go to such lengths to humiliate their partner on their wedding day. I can only imagine how awkward and uncomfortable it must have been for everyone there. It makes me wonder what was going through the bride's mind when she requested the figurine of the pregnant woman. Was she planning this all along, or did she just come up with the idea on a whim? Either way, it's a pretty messed up thing to do. Story 9. A friend of a friend's wedding ceremony about 10 years ago. We were waiting at the chapel, and it is kind of a tradition that the bride lets the groom wait a bit in front of the altar. Couple of minutes, and people start making jokes like, I guess she decided to dump you before it's too late, ha ha ha. Or maybe she's practicing the wedding kiss with the driver, ha ha. Not exactly classy, but all in good fun. Nobody really thought that one of them would get cold feet. Another couple of minutes, and people get nervous. Try to reach the bride and the guy who is driving her to the chapel on their cell phones. No one answers at first. Then, after a while, a man answers the bride's cell phone, identifies himself as a police officer. The driver had lost control of the car, gone off the road and down a slope. Bride and driver were seriously injured. Car was a cabriolet with the top down, and apparently it rolled over 2 or 3 times as it went down the slope. But alive, and now being flown to a hospital. As far as I was told, the marriage was officiated later that day in the hospital with only the immediate family present. Another religious wedding ceremony would follow a couple of months later. Story 10. Hey, I can actually contribute. This is an actual story that actually took place a few years ago. A guy I know, not my friend, my brother's friend, married a girl from our hometown. The girl graduated the year after me, and the guy graduated 3 years before me. I knew her. I rode the bus to school with her in elementary school. Anyway, the wedding goes well enough. Everyone is happy. Then comes the reception. Everything goes fine. Everyone is happy. Then everyone goes to the after party at this bar. The bride and groom are drinking away until the groom is ready to call it for the night. The bride refuses to leave the bar and is getting unusually cozy with this grungy-looking, much older bartender. Groom goes, God, really? And decides to leave. Turns out she went home with the bartender and did it with him. Then it comes out that she's been doing it with him for months. She's 21, he's 38, and it led to a divorce, obviously. The next day, the groom gets all and goes back to the bar with a baseball bat. He starts calling the guy out. The cops show up. He tells them what happened. The cops were sympathetic, but they told him that they couldn't just let him kick his even though they wish they could. They drive him home, and they don't charge him with anything. The mother of the bride sided with the daughter, and the father of the bride sided with the groom. A month later, the bride's parents filed for divorce after 25 years of marriage over the incident. It rocked the whole town. She was this very pretty girl who cheated on a nice-looking, good guy with this dingy 38-year-old bar slob on her wedding night. She skipped town. I haven't seen her around since then. Yeah, I can understand why the groom would be upset and want to confront the other man, but is never the answer. It's good to hear that the cops were able to defuse the situation and drive him home safely. And it's fascinating how the bride's parents took different sides in the matter and ended up filing for divorce themselves. Infidelity can have a ripple effect on so many people's lives. Story 11. I had a buddy of mine who I don't really talk to anymore, but we aren't on bad terms, just kind of drifted apart due to life. I was deployed at the time to Afghanistan, so I obviously wasn't able to make it to his wedding. I seriously wish I did though, because what happened is freaking nuts. So him and his girlfriend were dating for like 5 years, and were going to get married. Everyone approved of this woman too. Educated, smart, and good looking. She seemed like a good catch. Day of his wedding, I guess he left his cell phone in his jacket in some room where the wedding was going to happen. Normally for an event like this, he'd be the first to turn it off and leave it somewhere, but I guess he needed to call his cousin who was late and in the wedding. Turns out he found the bride to be some friend of a bridesmaid in that room. They probably assumed it wouldn't be in use. He isn't the type to confront someone. Usually just turn red, about to erupt, and leave. Poor guy just left with his blood boiling. On his way out, yelled that she was a dirty through the door of the room where everyone was waiting, and the room fell silent. We have mutual friends who told the story, but I believe it. I guess my buddy, the groom, put all her crap in boxes inside the garage and forbid her from coming in the home or ever going back there again. They lived together, but everything was in his name. Smart guy. So while he'd probably still get in legal trouble, she was decent enough to drop it all and take her crap and leave. She apparently tried to explain it and apologize, but obviously he doesn't forgive nor forget. He was really destroyed by that. Please leave your story down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to make a video about them in the future. And also don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, peace.